Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm your host, Tom Ashbrook. Today we're discussing the Watergate scandal that took place under the Nixon administration. We have two guests today that were pivotal in the events that took place. However, before we introduce them, let's explain the basics of the Watergate break-in and the ensuing political scandal for those of you who may not know. On June 17, 1973, 5 people were caught breaking into the Democratic National Committee's headquarters, the Watergate office complex in Washington, D.C. 4 of the burglars were associated with the CIA, and the 5th was the head of the committee to re-elect the president, James McCord. They were referred to as the Cubans by the media, as they were mostly of Cuban descent and were involved in CIA activities against Fidel Castro, the Cuban dictator. The Watergate break-in was not the only one of its type, however. Gordon Liddy, who was a major player in the Watergate scandal, was planning several other attempts to spy on Nixon's opponents. Now that we have the basics out of the way, I can finally introduce our two very special guests, ex-President Richard Nixon and the informant known as Deep Throat.
Hello, Tom. Nice to be here.
Hello, Tom. It's nice to be here again.
As you may notice, we're distorting Deep Throat's voice in order to protect his identity. Let's get started with the interview. So, Mr. President, what was your involvement with the Watergate break-ins and similar domestic espionage?
Tom, I have said this before, and I will say it again. I had nothing to do with the break-ins. Even if I was involved, the burglars would not have done such a third-rate job. The group of burglars were just a bunch of overzealous anti-communist patriots. Quite frankly, such questions are downright disrespectful.
Mr. President, are you aware that the tapes you had recorded implicate you in the break-ins? Not only that, but everyone involved in the break-in is connected to you in some fashion, whether it is their being on your staff or their being on your campaign's payroll.
First of all, those tapes were recorded by me for the sake of my presidential library, and therefore those tapes are mine, and the government has no right to take them from me. It is my executive privilege. As for the accusations that these burglars were on my payroll, there is no proof that these claims are true.
If I may interrupt, I have proof. I have been leaking this information to the media for quite some time. The allegations involving the burglars being on your payroll are true. A check worth $25,000 was cashed by one of these burglars. This check was paid by CREEP, the committee to re-elect the president. Even the head of CREEP, Gordon Liddy, was involved in the break-ins. Nixon's illegal slush fund helped him win the election in a historic landslide. He won every state except Massachusetts and the District of Columbia.
That is a lie. None of those things are true. You have no proof.
Just about anyone involved in the scandal was baked to differ. All of the burglars who pleaded guilty to these crimes were coerced by so-called higher-ups. If you remember, they have the majority of the tape that you recorded, although you seem to edit out 18 and a half minutes of them.
That hole you referred to was caused by some malevolent force. I had no hand in the missing recordings, nor did I have any hand in the break-ins.
Were you aware that these tapes were illegal to begin with? Since those who were recorded were unaware of any such device and therefore could not consent to being recorded, it is not only morally reprehensible, it's illegal.
If the president does it, it is not illegal. The tapes were from my presidential library.
Then why did you resign from office, Mr. President?
I did not have the proper political backing to be an effective president. That's the only reason I resigned.
Why did your successor, Gerald Ford, pardon you then? If you're not to blame, what's the purpose of being pardoned?
The government and the public needed a scapegoat. The Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activities needed to blame someone for something they could not explain. This committee, headed by Democrat Sam Ervin, was not interested in finding the truth. They were interested in getting a Republican out of office. So was the judge involved with the trial's John Sirica.
Then how do you explain the checks from CREEP or the connection of the burglars to either your administration or campaign? Both of these things are more than just coincidence.
My campaign and administration is more than just me. There are many people running both of these. So at some level, some of my subordinates must have organized these unfortunate actions. I had no hand in these actions, as I have been saying.
When did you first know that you would have to be the first to resign from the presidency?
Ever since I got rid of the Office of Special Prosecutor, which caused the House to pass the first of 3 articles of impeachment, so around late 1973. I was not the only one who resigned. During the entire scandal, as they call it, over 40 people resigned.
With all that transpired during the Watergate scandal, how do you think your presidency will go down in history?
I think, despite what has happened, history will view me as a president who had the right intentions and all of his actions were guided by the needs of the nation, not any personal aspirations.
Well, thanks to both of you for coming in to talk with me. I apologize we did not have more time to discuss.
It was nice to be here, even though I never got a chance to actually talk.
I'm glad you did not talk, or else you would spread more disinformation about my alleged involvement in the break-ins.
You're just jealous of my new Vera Bradley bag.
What do you mean I'm jealous of your Vera Bradley bag? That makes no sense. I have 2 of my own.
You know you're jealous because mine's one of the special edition ones.
That's absolutely ridiculous. There is no proof to these accusations.
And besides, yours is illegal. It's a counterfeit.
There is no proof. If the president does it, it is not illegal.
Alrighty then. Until next time, folks, this has been Tom Ashbrook.
Thank you.